The airport buzzed with a frantic hum of holiday travel, a sound that felt more like a physical weight than simple noise. It was December 24th, the day when every terminal in every city seemed to turn into a floodgate for travelers rushing to get home before Christmas morning. Rolling suitcases clattered across the polished floors. Children tugged at their parents' coats, begging for snacks or bathroom breaks. The loudspeaker overhead crackled and sputtered, announcing gate changes in a monotone voice already half drowned by the crowds. No matter where one stood, something was happening. Someone crying from stress, someone laughing into their phone, someone sprinting toward a closing gate. But amid all that motion, Graham Lawcatch stayed still. He sat in a quiet corner of Terminal C, far from the frantic foot traffic. His seat was beside a large window overlooking the tarmac, where snowflakes drifted in slow spirals, thickening with every minute. The ground crew worked in stiff, hurried movements, bundled in heavy jackets as they directed grounded planes into safer positions. Above his gate, a digital board blinked an unwelcome message. Flight 471, delayed until further notice. But Graham didn't move. Not a shift of posture. Not a sigh. His black wool coat hung neatly over the back of the chair. A leather briefcase sat beside his perfectly polished shoes. He looked like a picture pulled straight from a business magazine. Clean lines, sharp tailoring, immaculate grooming. All except for the object sitting at his feet, a small, worn teddy bear. The bear's fur was matted from years of overloving. One ear drooped from a loose stitch, and its single-button eye was slightly crooked. It looked laughably out of place next to a man like him. But Graham held the bear gently, with a tenderness that did not match his otherwise controlled exterior. Not a business object. Not a sentimental decoration. It was a memory, a gift, one that had never reached the child he'd bought it for. His expression remained unreadable, the stoic mask he had learned to wear through corporate battles, boardroom negotiations, and lonely holidays. But his eyes, tired, dark, distant, told a story no one in the terminal could guess. They were focused somewhere far away. 5 years back, maybe more. He did not notice the children running past him. He did not hear the family arguing over lost boarding passes. He didn't pay attention to the holiday music looping quietly over the speakers. He sat in his private silence, until a tiny tug on his sleeve. Graham blinked as though waking from a deep underwater dive. He turned sharply. Standing beside him was a little girl, no older than 5, bundled in a red coat with soft brown curls spilling out from under a knitted hat shaped like a cat. Her cheeks were pink from the cold. A tiny backpack hung off her shoulder, slightly unzipped, revealing the corner of a storybook inside. She tilted her head and asked, with complete sincerity, "Are you lost too, mister? I can help you find your mommy." Graham froze. Of all the words that could have broken to the wall around his heart, those were the ones. He opened his mouth to dismiss it. "I'm not lost," but the words wouldn't come. He found himself staring into her eyes instead. They were wide, bright, curious, not scared, not confused, just kind. He hadn't seen true, innocent kindness in a long time. So instead of denying it, he asked softly, "Are you lost?" The little girl nodded, though her smile remained steady. "Mommy was here, but then I saw the candy shop. They had jelly beans. When I turned back, she was gone." She shrugged, as if this weren't the worst thing that could happen to a small child. "But it's okay. I'm looking for her. Want to come?" Graham hesitated. Every logical part of him shouted, "She isn't your child. Someone is searching. Alert security. Follow protocol. Stay out of it." But the part of him that had been silent for years, the part that remembered small hands and soft voices, rose to the surface. Slowly he stood. She didn't back away. She simply extended a mitten-covered hand toward him, utterly trusting. He looked at her hand, then at the teddy bear beside his chair, then back at her, and he nodded. "Let's find her together." Her smile spread across her whole face, bright and triumphant. "Okay." She slipped her hand into his, her small fingers wrapping around his without hesitation, and led him away from a window, past families, past busy kiosks, past people who glanced twice at the strange pair, a tall, impeccably dressed man and a tiny girl in a cat hat. For the first time in years, Graham wasn't thinking about work, about deadlines, about empty holidays. He was walking, moving forward, holding a small hand that somehow steadied him more than he steadied her. Her voice, soft and sincere, replayed in his mind with each step. "Are you lost too, mister?" Maybe he was. But walking beside her, maybe he felt a little less lost. They searched the terminals together. Sophie, she eventually told him her name, walked with determined purpose. "First we checked the candy shop," she insisted, tugging him along. "I saw the jelly beans." She spoke about her mother easily. "She has hair like sunshine," Sophie said proudly. "And she wears glasses when she writes stories. Right now she's writing about a turtle who wants to fly." "A turtle that flies?" Graham asked, amused in spite of himself. Sophie nodded vigorously. "Mommy says anything can happen in stories." Graham nearly laughed. A soft, unexpected lift filled his chest. Something he hadn't felt in a long time. In the play area, no sign. In the food court, no sign. In the scattered seating areas, no sign. He knelt beside her. "We'll find her," he said quietly. Sophie nodded but glanced around anxiously. "Maybe she's looking for me too. Maybe we're just missing each other." "Maybe," he said gently. An airport employee approached, brow furrowed slightly. "Sir, is that your daughter?" Sophie looked up at him instantly, trusting, waiting. Graham could have said no, but something in her gaze steadied him. "Yes," he said softly. "We're trying to find her mom." The employee nodded. "Try the information desk. They may have a report." "We will." They continued on. Sophie hummed as she walked, an off-key version of Silent Night. She didn't seem afraid, just hopeful. "You're not scared?" he asked. She shook her head. "Mommy says if you're lost, stay kind. Magic will find you." Graham stared down at her. "Magic, huh?" "Christmas magic," she said confidently. "I know we'll find her." After a long pause, Graham found himself saying quietly, "Maybe so do I." Across the airport, at the security desk, a woman stood trembling. Clara. Her blonde hair was messy, cheeks flushed not from cold, but from panic she couldn't contain. "She's 5, she told the officer. "Brown curls, red coat, little cat backpack. Her name is Sophie. Please, you have to find her." "We've made an announcement," the officer assured gently. "Stay close." These situations usually resolve quickly, but fear clung to Clara like a second skin. She pressed her hands together, trying to stay calm, trying to breathe, trying not to fall apart. And then the announcement echoed over the loudspeaker, a description of her missing daughter. Nearby, an attendant heard the broadcast, turned toward Graham and Sophie and said gently, "I think this might be about her. Come with me." Sophie grinned. "See? I told you the magic would work." They followed the attendant down a short hallway, and as they rounded the corner, Sophie's eyes widened. "Mommy." Clara turned, her whole body jolting as she saw the small red coat barreling toward her. She dropped to her knees just in time to catch her daughter in her arms. "Oh, baby," Clara whispered, holding her so tightly it looked like she would never let go again. "You're okay. You're okay." Sophie pressed her face into her mother's neck. "I found you," she said proudly. "I told you I would." Clara laughed through tears. When she looked up, she saw him, the tall man who had brought her daughter back. He stood a few feet away, quiet, uncertain, as though he were ready to fade back into the airport and disappear. "Wait," Clara called softly. He paused. "You brought her back to me," she said. "I just kept her company. She did all the work." Clara's eyes shone. "Still, thank you. I don't even know your name." He hesitated, then extended a hand. "Graham." She took it. Her grip was warm. "Clara." For a moment, everything else in the airport faded away. The rushing passengers, the muffled announcements, the tension of the storm outside. There were just 3 people in one fragile, perfect moment. A mother holding her child. A man who had carried his grief for years. And a child who believed in magic enough to make strangers care again. Then Clara noticed something. Sophie was holding a teddy bear. Clara blinked. "Sweetheart, where'd you get that?" "It was in his bag," Sophie said, cradling it. It looked lonely. Clara looked at Graham. He offered a small, soft smile. "It used to belong to someone important," he said, simply. Clara didn't ask more. She didn't need to. Something unspoken passed between them. Something gentle, human, unforced. The story that had begun with one innocent question was only just beginning. Leah Morgan drove home that night with her heart still hammering in her chest. Every word David Harper had spoken replayed in her mind. "You're the only one who didn't take it." It felt surreal. Unreal. It almost felt like she'd stumbled into the wrong story. One clearly meant for someone more confident, more experienced, more deserving. She wasn't used to being noticed. Not in life. Not in the world. Not in her own family. Integrity was something she lived quietly, not something anyone had ever rewarded. And now, a billionaire, her boss, had looked at her as though she was something rare, something valuable. Her hands trembled as she pulled into her apartment's cracked parking lot. The building was old, the paint peeling, and the hallway lights flickered like they were afraid of the dark. She didn't care. This place was all she could afford while paying back her mother's medical debts. Inside her apartment, the air smelled faintly of detergent and lavender, her mother's favorite. Leah moved into the small bedroom and checked on the woman, who lay asleep, breathing shallowly. "Mom," she whispered softly, brushing a strand of gray hair from her forehead. "I think something good might finally be happening." She didn't know how or why, but for the first time in years, hope felt possible. The next morning, Harper Estate. David Harper was already awake. He hadn't slept. He kept replaying the look on Leah's face when she returned the money. The shock, the honesty, the almost lost expression, as though she didn't quite believe she'd done anything extraordinary. Even now, hours later, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Garrett's voice echoed in his mind. "You're going to look at her differently." Differently? David wasn't sure what word fit what he felt, but she had cracked through something thick and jaded inside him, simply by choosing what nobody else ever had: integrity. She had no idea what that meant to a man who had spent 15 years watching human weakness play out like a predictable script. When Leah arrived at the estate at 7 a.m. sharp, her badge still new around her neck, she noticed something odd. People were staring at her, not with cruelty or curiosity, with confusion. Whispers trailed her down the hallway. "That's her. The new girl. He talked to her for almost half an hour yesterday. She passed the test." Leah flushed, gripping her clipboard tighter. Then she turned the corner and froze. David Harper was waiting for her. Not in his office. Not in passing. Waiting for her. "Good morning, Ms. Morgan," he said, his voice warm in a way she had never heard from him before. Her mouth went dry. "Gee, good morning, sir." He motioned toward the main hall. "Walk with me?" She hesitated. I don't want to get in trouble for leaving my station. I'm supposed to be..." "You're with me," he said simply. He didn't need to say anything more. People moved out of their way as though an invisible curtain parted around them. They walked in silence for a moment, the morning light streaming through tall windows, painting golden beams across the marble floors. "I never asked," David said eventually. "Why didn't you take the money?" Leah gulped. "Because it wasn't mine." "So simple for you," he murmured. "So impossible for everyone else." She swallowed hard. She didn't feel special. She felt ordinary. But David looked at her as though she was rewriting a world he thought he understood. He opened a door and led her into a quiet sitting room she'd never seen before. Sunlight bathed the room, and a fireplace crackled gently. "Sit," he said. She obeyed, confused, nervous, unsure what was happening. David sat across from her, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. "Ms. Morgan, you've given me something I didn't know I was looking for." Her breath caught. "Sir, a reason," he said quietly, "to believe people can be better." She blinked rapidly, overwhelmed. "I don't know your life. I don't know what you've been through, but I want to." His voice lowered, gentle but steady. "Let me?" Her heart thudded painfully. Nobody had ever asked to know her before. People tolerated her, passed by her, forgot her. But this man, this powerful man, made her feel seen. "I don't understand," she whispered. "I'm not asking for anything from you," David said. "I just want you to know that what you did mattered to me, more than you realize." A tear she wasn't expecting slipped down her cheek. She quickly wiped it. David's jaw tightened. "Who hurt you?" Her head snapped up. "No one." "Don't lie. I can see it." His voice wasn't demanding. It wasn't cold. It was protective, fiercely protective. Leah shook her head, voice trembling. "Life just happens to some people harder, I guess." David leaned back, studying her like she was a puzzle he desperately wanted to understand. "You don't deserve that." His words were firm, certain, unshakable. Leah looked away, unable to hold the weight of his gaze. Moments passed in silence until David stood. "I want you to stay at this job. Long term," he said. "If you'll allow it, I'll make sure you're taken care of here." Her chest tightened. "Why me?" "Because you're the only one who didn't take the money." His eyes softened. "And because I trust you." Her breath shuddered. Trust, a word that rarely belonged to her. David walked her back to her station, but as he turned to leave, he paused. "With your permission," he said quietly, "I'd like to talk with you again. Soon." Leah nodded weakly. "Yes, sir." He smiled, a small, barely there smile, but real. And then he left. But something had already changed. For him, for her, for both of their lives. Moments like that didn't stay small. They grew, they tangled, they rewrote destinies. And neither of them knew it yet, but this was only the beginning. A billionaire rediscovering humanity. A quiet, loyal woman finding her worth. And a choice, one moment of integrity, that tied their lives together forever.